This may come as a shock to some people, but one of the most beloved franchises of mine for a long time is Utawarerumono. This is a series that I've been following ever since I originally watched the series, probably, I don't know, 2009 or something like that. I heard about it through a radio station. I was listening to some music, and at some point, the OP came up, and I was like, this is an absolutely beautiful song. What is this from? I went and checked out the series, downloaded it, started watching it, and I was absolutely hooked. I loved this show so much. The world that it built and everything within it, the absolute beautiful animation and action scenes that White Fox put together for the series, I was immediately hooked. I was into it. Edidu, Aredu, all these fantastic character designs, all these animal people that their designs themselves were so unique, yet these characters like super strong, had a very intriguing build-up. I just loved everything about it. And yes, technically at the very end, having this big moment where it just literally takes the entire table and flips it, and you're going, what the hell just happened? And your mind's trying to process, wait, what just happened in this world? It was mind-boggling. It was like one of the very first times I ever had an anime really bend my mind to the point where I'm just going, everything I thought up until now is a complete lie. Like, it felt like everything got twisted. And I've loved it ever since. Now, unfortunately, for the longest time, that was it. That first season was it. And I kind of assumed that was it for the story. And then over time, I heard about, there's these other games. There's False Faces and Mask of Truth, all these other stuff they're building up. And then we get the announcement for another season. 2015, we seen False Faces come out. And I was like, yes, more Utawarerumono. And I jumped right in, and I was extremely disappointed. Truth be told, as much as I love Utawarerumono, I love the series so much, I was extremely disappointed with the beginning of the second season. It wasn't the show I remembered. And here's this other guy that's doing exactly the same thing that Hakuro did. In the original series, we had essentially this main guy that was Hakuro, and he was this human amongst all these beast people. And the big mystery was that he has no recollection of his past, but then it goes in this whole aspect of him trying to protect the people that is around him, building up this army and fighting against the powers in this world. And yes, like I said, eventually just flipping the whole table on us. But now we're doing it again. We're opening up with another guy that's amnesiac. He's a human amongst all these beasts, and we're doing this again. And it turned in, yeah, granted, the original series had a bit of a feel of a harem. There was a lot of very beautiful beast girls around this guy, and yes, some of them liked him. But it never felt like a harem. It didn't feel like everybody was constantly clamoring on this main character. Whereas the second season just felt like it was going full-blown harem. Tons of girls, they're always around him, and yes, tons and tons and tons of hot spring episodes. But eventually, it picked back up. At some point in that second season, it finally said, okay, we're done introducing the characters, we're done having a little bit of fun, now things get serious. And guess what? I immediately had that feeling of the first season kick back in. I'm like, oh yes, this is it. This is the fantasy that I love so much about this series. I was eating it all up. And yes, tying it in with the original stories. At some point, we have this big tie-in point that says, this is why this is connected to the same world. And I was like, yes, I was into it. Yes, once again, we're back into what I love so much about this franchise. And ever since then, it's been picking up in this big climactic battle. And then another 7-year wait. Then that's it. That's all we get for the second season. That's all we get. And then bam, third season gets announced. White Fox is doing it again. Here we are, 2022, and we're right back into the story, right where we left off. And I'm here to, this is like 5 minutes lead up to me saying, I absolutely love the third season so far. Now, with a caveat, there's one thing that is still kind of a struggle for me as we get into this third season, which is supposed to be the final season. This is supposed to be adapting the rest of the story, 28 episodes, which is fantastic. There's one big caveat still there, and that is that Haku's progression from what we've seen at the end of the second season to what we are getting into now does feel a little bit jarring. But thankfully, it does feel like the story is trying to present that he's struggling with this. Like, he's trying to push himself so hard to filling certain shoes that it's bothering him. He's feeling like he's being too strong, and he's feeling like he has to do certain things to fill these shoes, but at the same time, he's realizing he's pushing too hard. Like, he's trying to be dominant, he's trying to be powerful, but at the same time, he's overdoing it. People are realizing that he's overdoing it, which is kind of shocking, honestly. But this is all for me to present my call out to everybody, honestly. If you are a fan of fantasy, honestly, look no further than this series. I honestly think that this is kind of going to be, in the end, I'm going to assume that it's going to finish out really incredible, but if it finished out incredible, this is easily going to fall down as being one of the greatest fantasy series of all time. Now, the unfortunate thing that I've had to deal with, and a lot of fans have had to deal with, is how sporadically placed out this series has been so far. Having the first season come out in 2006, the second season in 2015, and now finally the final third season in 2022. It has been a long time to consume this entire series. Yes, 11 years. It's been 11 years just to watch 3 seasons. And it's a huge investment, honestly, for a lot of people. But at the same time, what I discovered as I was trying to recap all the older seasons to refresh my mind on what's exactly going on, what all the terminology means as we got into the 3rd season, I rediscovered my love for this franchise. I rediscovered what I loved so much about the first season, Hakuro's story. I rediscovered what I loved so much about that big table flip that happens at the end of the first season. All that backstory and juicy information that really sets up what this world is. And I think as you get into really what makes out this entire world, its history, what develops it, where people gain their strengths from, how these empires were built, all that stuff, as it gets into a lot of information, that's where a lot of the juicy details are in. Add to that having a huge cast of fantastic characters. I loved Ereru. I loved Karuda, Kamyu. Toka still is one of my favorite waifus of all time. And yes, even with the 2nd season, getting into these other characters like Atsui, which I absolutely adore her, and Anju, seeing Anju's development in this recent season has just absolutely floored me. This is a show that has an enormous cast over its many generations of storytelling that really does define this fantasy adventure through and through. But at its core has always been kind of the struggles of people to maintain their safety and their peace and their individuality amongst all these empires that are constantly fighting over power. And to see these characters kind of band together, and yes, granted, a lot of them are OP characters, that's kind of what makes them this band of characters that are able to come together and push the tides of the war in the direction that could ultimately, hopefully, lead to peace and happiness for these individuals. It's just honestly sad because what I realized here recently as I watched this recent episode of the 3rd season, and I was floored. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was an incredible episode because it both was a moment where one character realizes something important while another character realizes their strength. And when it all kind of came together, this epic battle and everything, and the fight itself played out to kind of reveal these things to the characters, I was excited. And I went onto Twitter and social media and I'm like, holy crap, this episode was so amazing. And crickets. I don't know this show quite has the fandom it deserves. I know the original first season was pretty popular at the time. I remember a lot of people were really emphatic about it. But I think as we've progressed 11 long years, we sort of had that fall off of so many anime fans over that course of period of time that you have a lot of people that are jumping in now and going, wait, what is this Mask of Truth? And they're watching it and they're going, what the hell's even going on? They don't know that it's the 3rd season. And that was the same problem with the 2nd season. All these people going, can I watch this? And we're going, I think so. I'm not sure exactly how it's going to tie into the 1st season until it finally did. It's a series that deserves love, but at the same time, it's a massive investment because we're now literally at the point where we're at, 60 episodes? It's a huge investment for a lot of people, but at the same time, again, I said it and I'll say it again. If you are a huge fan of the fantasy genre, look no further. This is like literally fantasy incarnate. Now there's a little bit of sci-fi in there as well. It's in the background, but overall, this is literally fantasy at its best. It's adventure at its best. It's military. It's action. All that stuff embodiment. And yes, granted, this 2nd season having this little segment where it gets pretty harem-y and bath scenes and stuff like that. Don't let that dissuade you from the overall story, which I think is incredibly beautiful. White Fox is an incredible studio that has done a fantastic job on it. And again, like I said, characters and backstory and progression that you just cannot find really anywhere else. That's really what my goal was for this video, is to really just hopefully persuade some people into giving the series a shot. The unfortunate thing is really trying to find out where all these seasons are. It's the first season's on Funimation. I don't know when they're going to transfer it to Crunchyroll, but the first season's on Funimation. The 2nd season, False Faces, is on HiDive. And then the 3rd season now, Mask of Truth, is on Crunchyroll. So it's all over the place. But I still, again, if you can find these methods of watching it, I highly suggest it. At least give the first season a shot. Yes, I highly recommend watching from the first season because there's so much stuff that's still pulling from that first season. Again, this is technically a chronological story that continues on. And there's a lot of things that it's referencing from the first season that you're not going to understand unless you have that perspective of the beginnings. And technically the first season is still my favorite of the entire franchise at this point, even though this third season is hopefully going to turn into equally as powerful of a show. Maybe at some point I'll just do a spoiler discussion of what my thoughts are on this season as it is right now. It's very hard to talk about this series because it's been so long, and there's some things that I'm still at this point trying to remind myself what they're referencing at this point or that point, because it's such a long-running series. But anyways, it's my thoughts currently on Utawarerumono as a franchise, I guess, and why you should really be watching it. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure to hit that like button down below, comment. Let me know if you're into Utawarerumono. Are you one of the many people that are just quiet out there that are that I need to find to talk to about this series? I'd love to hear from you guys. What are you thinking about the third season and how things are panning out? Additionally, if you've not watched the series and you are going to watch it now, let me know. I would love to hear from you guys, what you're thinking of it so far and all that kind of stuff. I love feedback whenever I suggest things and people come back and they enjoy it. Additionally, if you're not already and you're new to this channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you get all my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support the channel more, we have a Patreon link, a tips link, and a super thanks button down below. I greatly appreciate if you consider just throwing a buck at us. With that said, y'all take care.